I'm just going to say this when it comes to Trey Hendrickson. PFF expects him to sign for 1 year and $21 million. I'd be surprised after that extended holdout last year with the Cincinnati Bengals, in which the Bengals would not budge, if Hendrickson takes $20 million when the top of the market is in the $40 million range. And I'm not saying that Trey Hendrickson is the same as a 27-year-old who signs with his original team. But over the last 3 years, Trey Hendrickson has been up there with Myles Garrett as essentially the best sacker in the NFL. You're the Titans. You're not very good. Over the last 2 years, you've been the worst team in ball. I heard your assistant coaches today talk about how everybody around the league just loves Tennessee. Do you buy that? I don't. I would make the Godfather offer to Trey Hendrickson. This is the one guy that if I'm the general manager and we're putting the board together, I am looking at him saying, I want him. And I'm going to tell you why. Because sacker is the second most important position in the NFL to quarterback. So I would love an elite quarterback. The second thing is elite sacker. Hendrickson will not cost you any draft capital. He will be a straight-up free agent unless the Bengals tag him, and I'd be shocked if the Bengals are going to pay him $30 million a year. And I think the Bengals last year would have been willing to trade him, but nobody was going to trade good draft capital in order to get Trey Hendrickson. They were going to pay him, but not for good draft capital. And I don't think anybody was interested in paying Trey Hendrickson and giving up good draft capital. So he's going to be a free agent. There are going to be teams that want Trey Hendrickson because Trey Hendrickson, even though he got hurt last year, had 17 and a half sacks the year before that and 17 and a half sacks the year before that. I understand there is a risk when it comes to the injury with Trey Hendrickson. I also think the reason Trey Hendrickson might play for you is because even though Cincinnati had all intentions of being a Super Bowl contender last year, Burrow and Chase and Higgins and Hendrickson, the one thing Hendrickson was clearly upset with was a perceived lack of respect. That's what the money represents. For a lot of people, money doesn't necessarily represent, wow, now with my $30 million contract, I can buy this, which I couldn't buy with my $26 million contract. But it's about the respect. It is you respect Joe Burrow enough to make him the highest paid quarterback in the league at the time. You respect T. Higgins to give him a big contract. You respect Jamar Chase to give him $40 million. You don't respect me. That's why when it comes to Trey Hendrickson, I'd bump into his agent at the combine next week, and I'd say about $90 million over 3 for Trey. 55 guaranteed. We'll give him 40 in cash in the first year. I've always said this. If you want a house, the market will dictate what you have to pay if you just want a house. But if you want a specific house, not one that's on the market, not one, but you are driving around town and you see a house and you say, that one, I want that house. As in, there's a one house you have to overpay. If somebody knocked on my door today and said, hey, would you sell us your house? I'd say no. If they said, we'll pay you $4 million, I'd say yes. So you have to overpay. And as much as $30 million a year is a lot of money, I'm not convinced that it's that much money. Because again, as far as the NFL is concerned, the top pass rushers make $40 million a year. I'm offering him $30 million. I would be willing to go up to $34 million a year in order to get Trey Hendrickson on a 3-year deal. And I'd up the guaranteed money too. Because I think about what Trey Hendrickson represents to the Titans. And again, I recognize the risk of him coming off of the core muscle surgery a year ago. And I recognize the risk that he's 31 years old. Trey Hendrickson is productive. Trey Hendrickson is reliable. Trey Hendrickson is considered a leader. Trey Hendrickson has skins on the wall in the National Football League. He's led the league in sacks. He's been an All-Pro. He's played in a Super Bowl. When he walks in, there is not going to be a question of who are the big dogs in this locker room. There's him on defense, and there's Jeffrey Simmons. And I think about the idea of signing Trey Hendrickson, pairing him with Simmons, and drafting Arvell Reese or Reuben Bain or David Bailey. And I think that right there gives you a formative defensive line. And the truth about the NFL is, in today's game, because the rules have changed, in today's game, defensive backs do not matter as much because they cannot be as physical with the receivers. So the only way to stop a team on offense is to either sack the quarterback or get him to turn the ball over. And the way to do that is with pass rushers. Simmons, Hendrickson, and then you pick Bain, Bailey, Reese, whoever's there. I think that's a pretty formidable pass rush. And not only that, I did the math the other day. If I cut Lloyd Cushenberry and I cut L'Jarius Sneed, and I only get $8.5 million from Sneed because $7.5 million is guaranteed for injury, and we know L'Jarius Sneed is hurt. If I do that, I walk away before Ridley, before Pollard, if we have those discussions. But I walk away with the ability to spend $161 million in free agency this year. Take out 30 or so for the rookie class, and I can spend, my math is $131.2 million in cash. $40 million is not the end of the world for an impact game-changing pass rusher. Now, if that core muscle issue flares up, the Titans are fucked. And I understand it. And if at 32, Trey Hendrickson is no longer an elite edge rusher, you're in trouble. All of these things are risks. This is a risk I'm willing to take. I would not have been willing to take the L'Jarius Sneed risk 2 years ago. You all know that. Hendrickson is a risk that I'm willing to take. Because again, Owe, younger guy, not as productive at sacking the quarterback. And can you imagine what that would say to the Jeffrey Simmonses of this team? If you add Trey Hendrickson and you look at both of them and say, all right, big boys, you go get it. And I talked yesterday about wide receivers. There is not a Trey Hendrickson on the wide receiver board because the only guy who's anywhere close to the kind of player that Trey Hendrickson is George Pickens. He's probably going to get tagged in Dallas, and he's crazy. Hendrickson is not crazy. So let me just say, once again, when it comes to free agency, and there are a lot of positions the Titans have to get figured out. They've got to get pass rusher figured out. They've got to get receiver figured out. They've got to get center because I'm going to cut Lloyd Cushenberry out. They've got to figure out right guard where Kevin Zeitler's a free agent. They've got an entire cornerback room they need to replace. They've got a couple of safeties I think they'll need to get, and they've got a tight end they're going to have to go get. That's a lot. I am willing to splurge on Trey Hendrickson, the number one pass rusher on the board and the number one player, according to PFF, on the free agent market. And again, I don't even know where PFF came up with that 1 year, $21 million. That's crazy. Again, I'm thinking you want Hendrickson 30 to 35 million a year. And I'd spend it on him. You got to spend it on somebody, don't you? Why not spend it on a guy who sacked a quarterback 17 and a half times 2 years ago and 3 years ago? And last year, again, had a PFF grade of 82.9 before getting hurt, which is a one-off for Hendrickson, who is not a consistently injured guy. So if Amy were to tell me, we can't spend that kind of money on Trey Hendrickson at 31 years old, then maybe we could have the OA talk. But I would look at Trey Hendrickson and basically say, what's the price? Now, I'm not going to pay you 40 because you're not going to get 40 anywhere else. But I will pay a suck tax So if that means I got to get up to $34 million a year and I got to guarantee you 2 years, I'll do it. I am banging the table for the Titans to be aggressive with Trey Hendrickson. The second thing I would do as far as the free agent pass rushers are concerned, and I went to that second tier of guys after we got past Joey Bosa and after we got past Khalil Mack. So this is Draymond Jones, Kayvon Chason, Kwity Paye, and Dante Fowler. Dante Fowler, too old for me. Now, again, these are probably only going to be one-year deals, so how important is Dante Fowler's age? I get it. And if Aaron Whitecotton, who coached him last year in Dallas, and Gus Bradley, who was his coach's rookie year in Jacksonville, both said to me, GM Jared, we love Dante Fowler. And Dante Fowler will be great for the room. And Dante Fowler will be a great rotational pass rusher for us. And we think he'll be great for guys like Jalen Harrell and maybe even a Tavondre Sweat or whatever. If that's the case, then maybe I'd be interested. But again, that group, Draymond Jones, Kwity Paye, and Dante Fowler, I'm not interested in Kayvon Chason. That group, I'd look to bring in one of those guys on a one-year deal. So I bring in one of those guys on a one-year deal. Again, think about 10, 12, 15 million in that range. I bring in one of those guys, and I bring in Trey Hendrickson, and I'll pay him $40 million in cash this year. With a signing bonus and a base salary. Again, the average will be 30, but the cash this year will be 40. And the guarantee will be 55. And if I've got to raise the guarantee, I'll do that. If I've got to give him a bigger signing bonus, I'll do that. But I think Hendrickson is that good of a player. I want to come out of free agency with Trey Hendrickson at one defensive end position and one of those guys, Kwity Paye on a one-year prove-it deal, Draymond Jones bringing him back, Dante Fowler, one of those guys on the other end to go with Simmons. And I still will draft the best player available with the 4th overall pick, even if it's Bain or Bailey or Reese. So that's our free agent board at the pass rushing position. Again, I told you yesterday when it came to the wide receivers, I'm kind of torn on what to do with Calvin Ridley. I told you, well, Pickens, he's off the board. Pierce not going to get to free agency. Mike Evans is old. Deebo Samuel is old. Jawan Jennings has issues. Shaheed is fast, but he's not a number one. Romeo Dobbs, there's not a receiver that I looked at that I'm like, overpay. Now, I like Jalen Naylor yesterday, but I'm not saying let's go make Jalen Naylor the highest paid receiver in free agency, or I am saying that with Hendrickson. Hendrickson is that kind of player. I wish there was a tight end out there I could pay, like Trey Hendrickson, given the Titans' need and how much I think a tight end is important for a young quarterback. I wish there was a tight end out there that I could go out and get. There's not. I want Trey Hendrickson. I am circling, and I'm saying bring him in. And then we'll figure out the secondary, and it's going to be tough because we got to get to the corner board. And, again, I think they still need more help at safety. I can't rely on Kevin Winston. Guy's always hurt. But I'm going all in on Trey Hendrickson, and just let me say this. GM Jared would be willing to pack his bags and get his ass fired if Trey Hendrickson doesn't work out. There has to be risks that you take. This is a risk that I would take.